and welcome back to Chase's Everything Shooting. Today's episode is hunter communications. Now, some of you that don't hunt, this still will pertain to you because it's a great communications system and it works very, very well. So stay tuned. If you're here to learn all about radios and how they work and all that kind of stuff, you've come to the wrong video here. We're just going to be talking about the different services out there, a few of the different communication systems and how they work, but not down to the nuts and bolts. If you came here for communications lingo like FARs and simplex and SWRs, hey, tune in to someone else because they're farther into it than I am. I use these radios for communications between my house, my wife, and other hunters in our area. And so this is really why I'm doing the video. It's a safety thing for me. I have a lease out in a very rural area and there is no cell coverage. So this way I can communicate and let my wife know I'm there, what's going on. I can communicate with the hunters in my little area that we're hunting, and it just seems to work really well. So let's get to it. You know, most hunters are hunting in wilderness areas, and that means it could be mountains, deserts, valleys, just areas that usually don't have good cell coverage. So that's why I felt it was important to get a radio and figure out what service and how to do this. And so that's why I'm doing this video. You know, there are times where an emergency happens out on your hunting lease or out in the wilderness and you need to communicate. The number one communication for people out in the wilderness is usually a satellite phone. A satellite phone is a very expensive phone. The phones run from $800 up to about $4,000, and the services are unbelievably expensive. Voice communication alone is $1.25 a minute, and then you get data and text and all that kind of stuff, and it just skyrockets from there. So for me, a satellite phone probably wasn't going to be in my budget. Now, the other thing is your cell phone, and we all know that cell phones have bad areas and they don't always get good coverage. And if you look at the maps online of all the different services, they'll show you that your area is covered. I mean, mine is totally covered. If you look on the map, it's got all this red around it, and it says, oh yeah, you've got coverage. Well, I can tell you there isn't any coverage out there. I have to go about a mile, mile and a half, maybe 2 miles just to start getting spotty coverage. And then, I've got to go farther in to get better coverage. So a cell phone really doesn't work very, very well when it comes to hunter communications. And the third communications and service is the CB radio. And the CB radio, hey, I was a big CB guy back in the 70s. KNL 6927 was my call. I enjoyed it. I was a youngster back then. I had a big Moonraker antenna, and I talked all over the United States. So CB radios are really used primarily now on the highways, and that's even starting to change a little bit, but there seems to be a lot of interference with CB radios. And so I kind of stayed away from the CB radios thinking that, it's just not going to get any better. And there's a lot of different interference, so that kind of fell off of my list. Now, one of the things that I'm starting to hear and see hunters use is the FRS, the Family Radio Service. And when you go to Target you see these radios in these plastic packages, and you can talk 25 miles. Well, yes, in certain circumstances you can. But here's the thing. FRS radios are limited to 2 watts. And 2 watts would be great, if you're a real close distance, let's say a mile, maybe 2 miles with nothing in between you. That would really work. And you see the FRS being used with people that go on hikes that stay relatively close, or that their families go to Disneyland and they want to figure out where the kids are and stuff. That's really what the FRS is being used for. And to me, it's just not a great program, a service rather, because there's no licensing. People just kind of talk over each other and go a little crazy. So not one of my favorites. Now, there is a system called GMRS, a multiple use radio service. And what I've really come across with GMRS is that GMRS also is very low wattage, but they use entirely lower frequencies. And so it's really a very, very good program or service to be used when you're at the retail store. And you'll see it a lot of times. You'll see Target and Boot Barn and those types of companies, and you'll hear them with their little radios. They've got little earpieces and stuff, and hey, this person's looking for this, and they'll talk, or they'll call the manager and say, hey, we're looking for this. So it's a very, very short range service, but it works very, very well. And really, commercial use is really where we're seeing most of the GMRS. Then you've got ham, okay? Ham radio. Now, back when I was in CBs and wanting to do ham, you had to learn Morse code. Well, Morse code's gone now from the ham test, but the ham test is really a pretty tough test. You have to know a little bit about electronics and wattage and amperage and, capacitors and all those kind of things. And so for me, I didn't think that would be a real wise decision. And so I ended up with GMRS, the General Mobile Radio Service. Now, the very first thing I want to say about GMRS is that you can go from 0.5 watts all the way up to 50 watts. So there's a wider range there. The frequencies, you can use repeaters or you can use channel by channel. And there's a lot of different avenues that you can do with the GRMS, and that's why I ended up there. Now, one of the great things about GMRS is there's no test, but you still have to be licensed. Okay, I want to say it again, but you still have to be licensed. And so the most important thing you can do is, if you're going to use the GRMS, is go online to the FCC, and you can apply for your license. Your license covers you and your whole family, okay? So if your wife has a radio or one of your children has a radio or whatever, your license covers your whole family. And your license is good for 10 years. So it's really, really very easy. The website isn't easy to use, and I would suggest that you go to YouTube and you go through several of the people that say, hey, I'll guide you through the licensing for GMRS. Those are great YouTube channels. And I'll post in below some of those links. But I went on, it took me about 15 minutes. I put all the information in, I set it up, I paid for it. It's $35, not gonna kill you. And it's for 10 years, so that's a good thing. And sent it off. And about 48 hours later, I had my call number and I was set to go. So one of the GMRS things is great is that the licensing is very, very easy. Now that is for an individual. You can do a corporate license. I didn't do a corporate license, so I can't speak to that side of it. Pardon me. But most of us that are hunters are going to be doing individual anyway. And so I would say that's another one of the reasons I went to GMRS. Now, the next thing with GMRS is that it is very typically like CB and the Family Radio Service and MERS and all the others, it's line of sight, okay? So if you're sitting at your house and you want to talk to your wife who's in town 10 miles away, if there's nothing in your line of sight that would stop your signal, you could talk to her 10 miles away. If there are buildings, trees, other things like that, that could lessen the distance that you can talk. And you're going to have to get comfortable with how far you can talk. The antenna makes a difference. There's a lot of different things there, but if you're just talking channel to channel, you should be able to get 1 to 5 miles pretty easily. 10 miles is I've talked 10 miles. It's not unheard of. With the GMRS, there's one thing that you get, and that is you get the ability to use repeaters. And repeaters are antennas that have been put up by clubs, by individuals that extend your range. And so that really came to me and going, ooh, is there a repeater that covers out by where I hunt? And so I went to my GMRS.com, which is a website for repeaters. And I went through those and I found, hey, there is a repeater that covers my area. And the repeater covers about 65 miles, which you would never get with your standard radio unless you were on top of Mount Everest and talking somewhere, at the very bottom. But so I looked, and my GMRS is very, very good. You put in your location, and then it tells you what repeaters are available, and then you go in and look at the range and see if that covers the area that you are going to be in. Now, in order to get into my GMRS.com, you have to have your GMRS license. Now, people are going to program your radio. Well, yes, there's going to be a little programming on your radio in order to use a repeater. Repeaters use standard frequencies, but then they use a tone, and that tone says, hey, you're approved to use this repeater. And so you have to program that in. It's very, very easy, and I'll go over that in another video, but it's very, very easy. You know what? I'm not even going to go over it in another video. I'll just tell you this. If you want to understand how to program a repeater into your GMRS radio, then look at your manual, number 1. Number 2, not a Rubicon. Not a Rubicon. That is Randy, and he is a huge GMRS guy, and he is who I listened to and watched his videos to figure out which different services and radios I wanted to buy and to use. So don't forget, Not a Rubicon Productions is the full name. And Randy, hey, if you're listening, I appreciate your education and what you've done. So let's get back to the repeater thing. the repeaters definitely make a difference. And because that repeater covers my hunting area, I have perfect communications. I can be sitting out in my blind and I can be talking to my wife, which is 50 miles away from me. So it really is a great thing for me and my communications, but really it's a safety thing. If something were to happen to me out there, I could get a hold of her and she could send help. Now, one of the things with GRMS that I really like is that there's a lot of added accessories. And you'll find that with all the different handheld radios, but the GRMS is clearly, to me, stands out because of the ease of use. The other thing I want to go over is communications between hunter and to hunter. We can communicate back and forth. So, you know what? If I'm sitting in my blind and I want to call and say, hey, Gene, I just shot a great buck. Come over and help me. We got to get it. We got to gut it and get it ready to go. Then I can just pick up my radio and talk. But if I'm sitting in my blind and I'm hunting and I see something and I see a deer going towards another blind, or I see something going on, you know, a lot of people have the little earbuds that they use that are Bluetooth. The problem with Bluetooth earbuds is that you have to talk at a higher level in order for that little microphone up here to pick it up. So when I'm hunting, I use a wired headset like this. And with this, it's got a little push to talk. So it can be in my ear and I can hold it up to my face. Hey, Gene, you got a deer coming your way. He's on your left. We can talk back and forth and it doesn't disrupt. So that's why I really like the wired headset, is because it is a little easier. You can hold it up to your lips, you can whisper, and the person on the other side can hear. I use the Tidradio, and this is the radio that I use. And I chose this radio after seeing a lot of different reviews. I chose it because it's a heavy duty plastic. It's not a cheap, real thin plastic. It's really a heavy duty. I really felt that if I were in a tree stand and I dropped it, it'd be okay. If, you know, it got a little moisture on it, it is not waterproof, it would be okay. And it's very, very simple to program. The other great part about it is you can program it with your cell phone and Bluetooth. You don't have to have a cable or anything else. So it really kind of added to the idea of getting the Tidradio. Now with this radio, I tell you, it's worked phenomenal for me. And there are a lot of different brands of radios out there and a lot of different things that they each do a little differently. The Bofang, which is they're about $25. They're okay. I don't have a problem with them. I just felt they were a little too cheap and too plasticky for what I wanted. I figured I'd rather invest a little bit more. These are about $50 a piece, and you can buy them in a set of 2 and get extra batteries, and you can get the extra earpieces and a lot of those things for, $120. So there are a lot of good radios out there that you can get. You can get the full waterproof radios. So again, it's one of those things where it becomes personal, but go out and do your research. Figure out what's best for you and get going. I think that you'll find that it's worth the investment, and it's definitely a great game changer when it comes to any type of emergency communications. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate you stopping by. I hope this has helped you a little bit. It's very cursory. I didn't dig in deep because I'm not a radio guy. I just use them. Hey, thank you.